Hello and welcome to Paizo Live. My name is Aaron Shanks, and I need to mute my Twitch. There we go. Um, Hi, I'm Aaron Shanks, Paizo's former marketing and media manager. And over the last few weeks, I leveled up, and I am now Paizo's director of marketing. So yay! Between you, me, and the fence post, that means I'm still Paizo's only full-time marketing employee. But I am so excited because I'll be hiring my replacement and leveling up the department, and I'm really excited for the things to come in terms of Paizo and promotions and communicating with all of you. So I've just returned from a week-long vacation in Canada. Some of you who follow me on Twitch might have seen that I was having a great time. I'm pretty chill. I'm pretty mellow. And last month, uh, last Paizo Live, we tried to fit way too much into the show and went long. And so the theme for this episode is Fall Back and Regroup. We're going to have a great time talking about Pathfinder and Starfinder. Um, and we're narrowing the focus a little bit. We're going to have only 3 guests. We're going to talk about Bloodlords and the Pathfinder Society Year of Boundless Wonder with Mike Kimmel. And then we'll take a little break. And we'll talk about the Starfinder Drift Crashers Adventure Path with Jason Keeley. And then we'll take another little break. And then we're going to talk to James Case about Pathfinder Dark Archive and that amazing new rulebook that's come out. And I've built in some extra time to just interact with chat. And so I really want you to all ask questions as we go, and I'll interact on your behalf with the guests. We're definitely going to approach each of these products as if this is your first time playing Pathfinder or Starfinder, so we're not going to make too many assumptions about what you know, but I know all of you, and you're going to ask the deep, detailed, interesting questions that are probably that reflect very veteran players. So it's going to be a show that's going to have the best of both worlds, and so we're going to spend the next 2 hours talking about all things Pathfinder and Starfinder. I want to get a few things out of the way before I introduce our first guest. You've seen spoilers, but I want to just mention that here in the month of June, our street date for June is next Wednesday, the 29th, and we have about 16 products that are going live in true Paizo fashion of prolific publication. We have about 16 products that are being released in the course of June. Several of them have already been released. Looking at my list, things like Pathfinder Bounty 19 Grim Tidings and some Pathfinder and Starfinder Society scenarios have already been released earlier this month on the heels of PaizoCon. Tangent PaizoCon was at the end of May and was full of content, and we had a great time online streaming a ton of different panels. You can find, I've almost finished converting all of those seminars to YouTube, so you can catch the vast majority of the content on YouTube from PaizoCon 2022 on YouTube. And by the end of the weekend, I'll have them all posted. Good level up. Was this a class feat or a skill level feat? Ooh, let's call it skill level. There are a lot of 4 years of experience points, that's for sure. 4.5 years. Yeah, a little backstory. I started 4.5 years ago as Paizo's part-time public relations manager. So that's how I got here today. And yeah. Bingo MC Bongo will be talking about Bloodlords, the adventure path. Absolutely. So yeah, we have even more products releasing next Wednesday. Maps, accessories, more Pathfinder and Starfinder scenarios. You can go to Paizo.com and go to the release schedule at the bottom of the page, see all of it. Um, I'm gonna do a little less is more this month, and not list off every single product, but invite you to go check out the plethora of Pathfinder and Finder products that have been released or will be released in June. Um, and also a shout out that Free RPG Day is tomorrow. So go to your favorite local retail store who is participating and grab your free copy of both of the little free adventures that we've made for you. There's Pathfinder Adventure: A Fistful of Flowers, which is a Leshy themed adventure, and it's adorable. And Or if you don't want it to be adorable, if you want it to be dark and edgy, there are plants like that. You know it. Um, and 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 Starfinder Adventure Skitter Warp, which is really another way to get into the whole Drift Crisis theme that we have going on this year, which we will talk about. So, Starfinder Skitter Warp and Pathfinder Fistful of Flowers. Don't miss them tomorrow. If your favorite local game store isn't participating, we will be selling these on Paizo.com in about 30 days. So the party will continue. Um, and yeah, so let's move on. That's kind of just the big overview that I wanted to do to set the tone. Let's invite Mike Kimmel to the screen. Let me there we go. Mike Kimmel is our leading guest this afternoon and evening, and it's really cool because he's a double feature. In that we're going to talk about he's the author of Volume 1, Zombie. Oh goodness. Of Bloodlords, um, of the
Zombie
Bloodlords,
Feast.
Zombie Feast. Thank you. It wasn't on the tip of my tongue, but ching. Um, so he is the author of Volume 1, Zombie Feast. That's Bloodlords 1 of 6. So this is going to be a 6-part adventure path, one every month for the next 6 months. So all the undead, all the time, all the way into Halloween and beyond. It's going to be great.
Mm-hmm.
And also, he is the mastermind behind Pathfinder Society, and is launching his own year of Boundless Wonder, which is the new Starfinder, Pathfinder Society theme that starts at Gen Con, right, Mike?
Yes, that's right.
Right. So, let's just do a little introduction for people who don't know you. How long have you been with Paizo?
Sure. I'm Mike Kimmel, and I've been at Paizo since last January 2021. I've been freelancing for Paizo since 2014 or so. Written plenty of adventures and monsters and other content. And so since joining Paizo, I've been working on Pathfinder Society adventures, first supporting Thurston Hillman, and then stepping into the line developer role to be in charge of the Pathfinder Society line midway last year, about this time last year, I think. And yeah,
Great.
that's me. So
When
as a
when when did
freelancer,
you?
I wrote Zombie
Yeah,
Feast, and as a organized play developer, I do Pathfinder shenanigans, Pathfinder Society
ex-
shenanigans.
exactly. And what was your first experience with Paizo or Pathfinder? Like, yeah, as a
Oh,
probably as a
let's.
freelancer, or maybe your first experience period. Like, when did you start playing, even if it wasn't freelancing?
Sorry, there's people in chat saying the audio is low, and also they're distracted by my puppies. But my first Paizo experience would be um, just a campaign that I ran in college, after college. And
Uh-huh.
I transitioned from playing third edition Dungeons and Dragons over to playing with the Pathfinder system when it came out, and so I've been playing all of Pathfinder's games for a while, and then my very first freelancing assignment for Paizo was a Pathfinder Society scenario in season 6 of the first edition campaign called Kava
Season 6.
Quarry, which
All
was set
right.
in the Kava region of the Mwangi Expanse,
So
and
you've
have
been doing this more
dinosaurs.
than a minute.
Yeah, a
Dinosaurs,
little while.
yes.
So
Excellent. All right, let me just check chat. Now I have turned up my volume on my own microphone, so chat, give me feedback on that. And Two Kings Entertainment, who is being our tech producer, please forgive me if that has totally messed you up. But I have, and my voice is a little lower today. I'm recovering, so I'm a little hoarse, but I'll try to speak up. Your mic is up, but not at your mouth. Okay, let's try that. So yeah, I'm working on it on my end. So, Mike, let's dive into to Bloodlords.
yes,
So set the what's the basic setting? Where does this take place for someone who's never heard of the Lost Omens campaign setting? What can you tell us about this land?
yeah. So the Blood Lord's adventure path takes place in a nation called Geb, which is ruled by a very arrogant man named Geb, who named the nation after himself. He's not a man anymore per se; he's a ghost. So the Ghost King Geb has ruled this nation for thousands of years. He kind of was in the background for quite some time, but has recently reemerged into the public's eye. And the 60 or so Bloodlords are the scheming administrators of this nation who are all vying for power and attention from Geb and constantly plotting and scheming. And in the
Hmm.
Bloodlord's adventure path, you start out working for a Bloodlord, and eventually it's kind of a heavily intrigue based campaign where there's mysteries and you're working for certain Bloodlords and against other Bloodlords, and maybe eventually becoming Bloodlords yourself. And so that is kind of to set the scene. It's this nation of many, many undead and necromancers and a lawful evil nation. By the way, if you're familiar with alignments in Pathfinder role playing game, this is a pretty bad place to be for most people, and so it's a heavily intrigue based and kind of horror undead themed campaign.
Right. So it's designed for not good characters, neutral, perhaps some evil. Spoilers. Mike and I have seen the Bloodlords Player's Guide. That is done. The PDF is done, and Ron Lundeen, who was our developer who organized this entire adventure path, has moved on to is no longer with Paizo. But before he left, he wrote the blog and finished the player's guide, and that should post next week. I think I was working with my team, and we just I think you should all see it next week. But I um I have seen that one of the recommended alignments that you can play is lawful evil, some lawful neutral, some neutral alignments. I don't think I saw any recommended good alignments, but there's I know some of you are a big fan of the grid in the last Pathfinder adventure path that was kind of like a nice orderly graphic that kind of presented the alignments and the ancestries and the backgrounds and the classes that were recommended and not so recommended. Well, that's in this one. So that's a cool new feature that I'm happy to share that is included in this next player's guide. So yeah, marketing tangent, just to pitch the player's guide that's coming out next week. Okay, back to you, Mike. So you're setting the scene. It's the Blood Lords, but this is the first volume, everybody's first level. How how did you go about writing an adventure that's dark and dangerous and undead filled, but for firsties?
Mm. Well, uh, that's a good question. Um, there are lots of zombies in this adventure. For it's called Zombies, so I don't
Zombie
think that's a
feast.
spoiler. And so it's actually, if you look at the numbers, like if you look at the raw numbers of some of the early encounter areas, just in terms of the number of creatures and how many experience points they're worth, and how many of them you could possibly encounter in a short period of time, it's pretty dangerous.
Hmm.
But it might not be if you are careful or well prepared for this type of adventure. Say you have the Book of the Dead supplement that is out, and it has plenty of tools for being undead and fighting undead. And if you learn and think on your feet when fighting some of these types of enemies, undead
Yeah.
in Pathfinder commonly have weaknesses that you can exploit, is a very common thing. You can learn what types of damage or spells will help you in these kinds of fights. If
Right.
you are undead yourself, you might in fact be less susceptible to certain kinds of attacks from the undead because you don't have blood or something like that. If you're playing like a skeleton, which honestly,
Right.
if a skeleton is an option you have from Book of the Dead, why would you be anything else? In my opinion,
It is in fact an
um,
option.
it is. But like maybe you're gonna be trying to go to become a vampire or something like that with the Book of the Dead
Right.
options, and so you're there are ways to mitigate some of that danger. But as for the low level feel is still there because it starts that the intrigue isn't like in your face from the very beginning,
Yeah.
like this powerful undead necromancer is going to come try and murder you right from the get-go. It starts off a little slower than that. You're slowly realizing that something's going on. I can't spoil too much because what's the fun of an
Yeah.
intrigue game where you know who the bad guys are, but it definitely has that low level feel of steadily realizing that you're a little maybe in over your heads. There's more going on than you realize, and you're stuck in the middle of it.
Yeah. So you can punch your way through it if you want to. Hashtag good luck with that. Or
Yeah,
or
I
try to
mean,
have some or try to be clever.
and maybe punching your way through will work uh, if you're prepared, right?
Right, right. Okay. In true Pathfinder style, it's all about knowing your abilities and your party members, your fellow party members' abilities, and how you can create synergies between each other by cooperating. Looking at chat, apparently the audio sounds better, so thank you all involved.
Ah, good.
You know, kind of thoughts about creating an all skeleton party. Are certainly a
Do it.
possibility.
Do it.
And Q times asks if we're going to see some blood magic in the Blood Lords. Now, that probably, for those of you new to Pathfinder, what we know is that the Pathfinder rules team started to scheme about blood magic in one of the previous rule books. I think it was Secrets of Magic, but it didn't make the cut. Um, and I know that it's that concept has not been developed, and it's, for instance, blood magic is not in Dark Archive per se. Um, Now there are new spells in Volume One
Hmm.
in Zombie Feast, so there could be some dark undead themed spells which we will well not de- sorry, I'm looking at chat, not developed, and I don't know if it ever will be developed. Let me state that clearly. I don't know the design team's thoughts on whether or not there will ever be blood magic in Pathfinder. Maybe, maybe not. They haven't told me because they're smart like that. um, don't tell the marketing guy. Don't tell the marketing guy until it's in the book. um, so yeah, that's what we know. And as I said, I wanted to interact with chat as we go, so that's what we're doing. So thanks for letting me interrupt, Mike.
Oh yeah.
But there are spells in the back of the volume, and we will get into that. So we've talked about the setting. We've talked about Geb, who is the once and future ghost, um, and we've talked about how your newbie wannabe bloodlords. Your first level, there's something unusual going on.
Hmm.
Um, and there's a mystery to be solved. So you start off as Scooby Doo, but
Yeah,
but
you
who
go to
knows?
the farm. You're Scooby Doo going to the
Yeah,
farm.
and then we'll see how you end up. And what can you tell us without too many spoilers about the plot and what people will find?
Sure. Um, like I said, you start off going to a farm. There is a
Oh.
faction in Geb known as the Reanimators, and they are responsible for food production in Geb. They raise zombies, mindless zombies, to work farms out in the remote regions of Geb. And as you'll learn from the player's guide, you'll be starting in a city called Grey Dirge, which is this city with massive stone walls around it that are also covered in and partially made from bones. So it's a very kind of grim place. But it's surrounded by farmland, and Geb produces lots and lots and lots of food. And there's something strange going out on one of the farms, and so your first job is you go to Grey Dirge and you meet a bloodlord who sends you. That's kind of your hook. Everyone, when you're making your character, kind of knows this person and has a reason to be going and working with them, whether it's a selfish reason or not. And you're going out to this farm to see, well, what's going wrong out here on this farm full of zombies. And everything goes well, and you go home and you retire. No, I'm just kidding.
Right, it all ends happily. End of
Yeah,
volume one.
and so of course you learn some strange things are going on this farm, and then you have more opportunities to kind of establish yourselves um, uh, in Grey Dirge and investigate some other locations that are very cool, and resolve some problems, continue to investigate new leads and new mysteries, and eventually start to discover some leads that lead to the later volumes of the adventure path and even more devious villains who you realize are plotting and scheming. One of the interesting things about the adventure path, to return to the alignment question, is yeah, you're kind of expected to be neutral or evil, uh, but you're not going to be tasked with doing overtly evil things necessarily. Like you're not going and fighting angels um, or torturing
Yeah,
or things like that. You're you are joining up with the bloodlords and there's lots of intrigue, but your enemies are other people who are scheming or other people who are a threat to Geb or to the bloodlords as a whole. And so um, just thinking about the plot and how it progresses and what
mm-hmm.
alignments you can be. There's a lot of different ways to approach it. You could play good characters who are, trying to be good in a world that doesn't want them to be, and trying to
That would be
do
incredibly
good.
rebellious, I should think.
Yeah, yeah. That it would be probably hard mode when everyone around you wants you to not be good. And in
Yeah,
Geb, positive energy, so healing magic and things like that, are frowned upon, to say the least. There's one of the other factions is in fact specifically tasked among their other duties with keeping an eye on people and making sure they do not use positive energy. And so, is it going to be harder if you're going around trying to do good?
Yeah.
That's not what most of the people around you are doing. So,
It's
look out.
it um it's a little bizarro world, in front Superman reference, where
Yeah.
things are not what the heroes are used to. In terms of, but there is still a society here, but it's not the sort of society that our heroes might used to be traveling through in fantasy fiction. Oh, hey, we showed the cover earlier, and I suspect that adorable halfling is the first blood lord that you meet. I don't know,
Yeah.
but that's just my suspicion. I do know that some people have looked at that art and thought, "Oh, she's so look at that happy smiling face. That's not what I
Mhm.
expected for a blood lord's adventure path." But I do want to point out the juxtaposition of the fingers that adorn
Mhm.
her as jewelry, the bones on the crown. Like, if you take a close look at what that smiling happy halfling is wearing, I
Mhm.
feel like that's a great representation of the juxtaposition of this land of Geb, where you've got someone who's smiling on the outside, but oh my goodness, look at what they're wearing, which might be a
Yeah.
good segue to our factions conversation.
Sure.
um,
Yeah.
there are
Go
factions
ahead.
in in Geb, and those factions are detailed in you do in the player's guide. You get a little summary of the different factions.
That's right.
Well, of course, this is an adventure that includes political intrigue, so factions are probably the basis of that political intrigue. Yes.
Yeah. The factions are there are five, if I recall correctly, five great factions and other minor factions, and each of them are any given bloodlord is going to be primarily allied with or part of one of these factions, and
Mm-hmm.
they are all evil. They're varying
Mm.
flavors of evil. So that's one thing to keep in mind, is like this isn't like one of them is trying to do good. Maybe sometimes, but overall the factions are evil and ultimately serve Geb the nation and Geb the Ghost King. Um, and you'll start off working for this bloodlord who is perfectly happy being evil and doing the work that she does, and is very cheerful about it. um, but you'll have options as the campaign goes on to build your reputation with the other factions, and
Mm-hmm.
or thwart the other factions, and so that's a large uh, part of the choice and kind of divergent stories that may occur for individual groups playing through this campaign, is that some of them might want to be part of the stick with the reanimators faction that runs the food production. Others might be more interested in working for the architects who are part of the Builders League faction, and they build any new construction in Geb must be approved by the Builders League, and so they have their hands in like all these very ancient sites and ruins, and they kind of know your deepest darkest secrets, because if you're building a secret chamber, then technically the Builders League has to know about it, right? And if you build it against their will, then you're like going against the faction. Or maybe you're part of the Celebrants
Ooh.
faction that has risen in popularity now that Geb is back, because they're all about festivals and propaganda and like Geb is awesome. Let's serve Geb. And so Geb is, as I mentioned earlier, kind of stepped back into the public sphere recently. So the celebrants are like, yeah, now is our time to step forward and grab more power. So there's options and a lot of
Yeah.
reasons that these factions don't like each other that are even more detailed in the back of Volume 1 here for the GM. Is each faction kind of gets a little
Yes.
stat block that's describes more of their uh,
Yeah.
enemies and things like that.
So I'll jump in, and I'm taking a peek at the Bloodlord's Player's Guide, and I will list off the factions by name. each faction gets a paragraph or two for the players, and then, as you say, the GM gets all the details of the stats. But we've got the Builders League, the
Mhm.
Celebrants, the Export Guild, the Reanimators, the Tax Collectors Union, and then lower factions, which I feel like is a group of smaller factions, but I'm skimming.
Yeah,
It says the
they're
most significant. Yeah, there's multiple little ones, right? Like the
mhm,
Carter's Consortium.
mhm. Yeah,
So that's
the
sort of the lay of the land that you'll have.
absolutely. Um, yeah, the lower factions. What makes a lower faction or a great faction is basically like who is more influential at any given time. So you can have factions that get knocked down a peg, or that rise from a lower level of influence, and you might have bloodlords switching allegiances or
Hmm.
things like
So
that.
what I'm realizing is you said that there was a blood lord that everybody knows when you start the adventure, and that's the hook. Well, I think it looks like, according to the player's guide, that is Berlin I'm going to say
Yeah.
Berlin.
Mhm.
And so she's, I think she's that happy halfling on the cover. So to some extent, that's why she looks so friendly and happy, is because she's the one you all know.
Oh
She's
yes.
your common contact, um, and then things will go askew from there. But that helps. It starts to make sense at first level. You've got a blood lord that you all kind of know, and it's the happy halfling who's also wearing gruesome things, and and then it gets darker from there, I'm sure. So hey, connecting the dots. This is exciting. Grey Dirge, just to share with everyone some of the neighborhoods. You'll get that in the player's guide. Bloodlord's Grace, Bone Scrape, Court of Ghouls, the Nashes, Governor's Quarter. There's an estate, something called the Meat Market, and the Ovens.
Mhm.
So yeah, ready, set, go. That sounds scary. Any questions y'all want? Any questions from chat you want to throw at Mike about Bloodlords? We're at
Ask
the
away.
half-hour mark. Undead IRS, yeah, Undead IRS, Death and Taxes, the
Mhm.
AP.
Yeah, the
Yeah,
tax
well, that's
collectors
lawful.
union.
That's lawful evil for you. Yeah,
Mhm.
the tax collectors. Um, yeah, everyone's yeah. So we're showing some images here of now that the image that I think you're seeing right now is from Volume One, and that's Geb in his. There's a word for a
Yeah,
chariot carried by people, but I don't remember what that is.
his
Um,
his palisade. No, I don't know. His
yeah, and it's so
palanquin.
detailed, and yes, that. Um, and then some of the other images are from some of the other volumes, but yeah, I pulled this
Yeah,
art from PaizoCon. So, and there'll be a ton of amazing new art in the player's guide. Okay, so uh, Peniquin, maybe that's what it is. Palaquin, something like that. So yeah, we're all playing with what the name of that is. Okay, I'm gonna move on to the some of the cool stuff that is in. Let's see. I'll just say in the player's guide, you're going to get the primer on Grey Dirge. You're going to get a primer on the factions. You're going to get a primer on the campaign timeline, so you understand where and when you are, and how Geb came to be, so you get your bearings if you're a brand new player. And then there's all sorts of character suggestions on alignments and ancestries and classes and language and skills and feats and backgrounds, and then all put together in a nice grid for you. There's a question in chat. Will Zombie Feast... Oh, do we have a street date for the player's guide? Well, it's next week-ish. I'm letting my blog team figure out what the right day for that is, but it's done. The blog is written. Essentially, behind the scenes, Ron has written the blog. It needs to go through our editing department because everything is better with an editor. Um, and once the blog is through the editing team, then we'll post it. So I think that's going to be next week. Um, if not, then after the 4th of July. But we always want to get these out about a month before the AP releases. and it's raining. And then the other question was, will Zombie Feast be mostly focused around Geb's farms, or will cities be focused on as well? Well, there's 6 volumes, and you've seen an outline, Mike. So you may or may not know the answer to that.
I do know. So Zombie Feast Volume 1 is focused around Grey Dirge, uh, which is a city. Um, it's not as big or cosmopolitan
Yeah,
as Mekitar or the other cities on the coast. But the later volumes do go to some of the other cities in Geb.
great. Yes. So the answer is yes.
Yeah,
There's a farm excursion in this volume, but there's also urban adventure in this volume, and more urban adventures as you go
that's right.
forward. I'm gonna jump to segue to the adventure toolbox that
Yeah.
is in the back of the volume because you wrote the vast majority of that.
Yes.
And I am happy to tell people that there is a whole um, hmm, uh, uh, what's a plural noun for undead companions? A murder of undead companions.
Well,
Um,
there, yeah, that would be appropriate.
murder of crows, murder of undead companions.
Yeah.
Um, the a swarm of undead companions. Well, some of I think there's no reason why we shouldn't mention some of them. There's a skeletal bird of prey
Hmm.
with the unnerving screech auditory ability. Um, a skeletal constrictor, which I expect is related to a snake or boa.
Yep.
An undead hand.
Yep.
A necropoli. Ooh, I like that. That's a good multiple. That's a good plural noun. A funeral of undead companions. A shamble. Yes, good ideas. I went
And
for the easy one. A murder was
the
likely.
the undead hand companion. Keep in mind with this thing that it starts off like this big, like dog-sized
It's a
undead
it.
hand.
It's
So
a. It's a.
this
Yeah.
isn't like
It's.
your little undead familiar hand that follows you. This is like big
It's not
undead
tiny. It's
hand.
small.
And like
Oh my
it
goodness.
follows
It's
the
like a
other
giant's
rules
hand.
for undead companions, so like they can get
Gosh, that is.
bigger.
That's
Yeah.
that's scary.
Yeah, we got
That
undead
is.
hand, carrion birds,
Yeah,
zombie mount. Yeah, not
that's
very
going to.
fast,
Uh,
but
right, but tireless, perhaps.
hmm.
Um, disgusting gallop. Oh my gosh. Um, yeah, people were looking for more disease options. Some people are very disease focused. I don't know why,
Mm.
but the zombie mount has this disgusting gallop, which is a move action and has the disease tag. So
Hmm.
some of y'all might want to pay attention to that one. Yeah, so there's a lot of things that even if you don't play this AP, and oh my goodness, you should, but if you just this will be added to the Pathfinder rules set, generally speaking, and be available to everyone. All right, next we have spells.
Yeah,
Mike, can you help me? I'm showing my ignorance here. It says a particular kind of spells.
yeah.
Is it a spoiler? Is it a spoiler to say
It,
what the names, the how
hmm.
these spells are categorized?
So that
Why don't we just? Why don't?
they're Cuthite spells. So Zon
Mm-hmm.
Kuthon, right?
Oh
It's
yes. Okay.
understandably as a deity of shadows and pain and such, quite popular in Geb, in
Yeah, it's
certain
not really his.
groups.
I mean, he has his own
Uh,
nation for goodness sake, but he seems to be interloping in Geb.
yeah, so there are certainly more popular deities. You've got Urgathoa, um, but
Oh yeah.
uh, but there's certainly followings of Zon Kuthon, and so we've got some spells along
Yeah.
those lines of
There's
fear
a
and
cantrip.
shadows. Yeah.
Yeah. Let's see. Somebody asked about blood magic, so I'm gonna just, for the fun of it, look to see if there's anything. blood themed. We do have horrifying blood loss, which is a second level spell. It's
Mm-hmm.
it's terrible.
Yeah, these
um,
aren't nice. They're all like
you
necromancy,
could,
curse, fear.
yeah, you curse the target, filling it with terror at the loss of its blood. I
Mhm.
think it's afraid of losing its blood.
You
Oh,
target a creature that's taking bleed damage, right?
yes,
So
yes.
if they're
So because
bleeding
they're
already,
bleeding, yeah.
yeah,
So
they,
that's
they
what that's the Pathfinder synergy we're talking about, where one of your party members deals bleed damage and the other one casts horrifying blood loss. Go team!
you've got someone. Yeah, you find someone who's having a bad day and you make it worse.
You make it worse, exactly, because that's what friends do. Um, let's see. I don't think there's Shadow Zombie, Swallow Light, Teeth to
Hmm.
Terror,
Hmm.
Umbral Mind Theft. These are not high level spells, so these are all things that I think you know you might find along the way and get
Hmm.
access to, which is it's great. Some low level, and they're not all necromantic. They're just
No,
all terrible.
yeah, they're
um,
yeah they're themed around shadows and fear and pain and that
yes, yes,
kind of thing.
vicious jealousy. So something to look forward to. So yes, is this a spooky book? Yes, yes, this is a spooky book. Or
Teeth to
I
terror
like
is a question from chat, and the answer is yes. You heard correctly. Teeth to terror is the name of the
Teeth
spell.
to Terror.
It has
Teeth to
art
Terror
too.
is uncommon. Yeah, the target believes its teeth are falling out, crawling along its face, stabbing into its body, and cramming themselves
uh,
down its throat.
I hate thinking about it. Why did I do
Did you
this?
write this? That's vivid, and I hate it, and I
This
love it.
was an interesting volume to write because it's so different than what I usually work on uh,
Yeah,
with Pathfinder Society stuff, which is can
but
be
right.
scary, but it's not like this. So
Has
it was
no, it
fun.
is not like this. All right, well, we actually should segue to Pathfinder Society, but before we go, I will mention that there is a new archetype
Hmm.
called the Corpse Tender archetype, and you tend to the mindless undead, such as the zombie farmhands and farm animals throughout Geb.
Hmm.
So this is an archetype that will allow you to fit right in to society in Geb,
Yeah.
in a rural farmer sort of way. There are also a lot of new monsters in the back of this volume, but Mike and I decided not to spoil those because a lot of those are the things that you'll find in the adventure itself. And of course,
Hmm.
there's amazing art. And yeah, looking at the levels associated with them,
Yeah, these are
they're
largely
all things. Yeah, you're gonna find them
foes.
in the adventure. Yeah. So, more about. Is there more about Erasni in this adventure path? Do you know
Not
anything about that, Mike?
not in
Not in
Zombie
this
Feast.
volume. Right.
And
Yeah.
I don't know if I could speak to the later ones necessarily. Um,
Okay. Good.
I, plans for
So,
Erasni are outside my sphere of influence. So
indeed. All right. Well, let me look at my schedule here. We went a little long on Bloodlords, but so hard, so amazing. Let's bring people up to speed about what's going on with the Year of Boundless Wonder with Pathfinder Society.
Boundless
It
Wonder.
launches. Did I? Yeah, Boundless Wonder. Did I say it wrong? Um,
Well, you got to do the hand gesture.
Boundless. Oh, that's what it. Boundless Wonder. So just so that. Oh, let me make sure that before let me do a better segue. If you want to learn more about Bloodlords, please make sure to watch the keynote address from Eric Mona on YouTube. Um, the Adventures in the Impossible Lands video on YouTube from PaizoCon. Of course, you'll want to look at Book of the Dead and the Lost Omens World Guide as in terms of hardcovers that will help you play in this adventure. The Player's Guide should come out next week, and now I will mention that the Pathfinder Society Year of Boundless Wonder was announced in a blog, previewed in a blog. We know the name.
Yeah.
We've seen some art. Um, and how much have you told people about it so far? What do we have to look forward to in this year?
Let's see. Well, we also had a blog in addition to announcing the theme of the Year of Boundless Wonder, which is essentially magic items is the theme. The Pathfinder Society is
Mm.
entrusted with a vault filled with magic items from all across Galarian and beyond. And the Year of Boundless Wonder tells stories of those items and what the Pathfinder Society decides to do with them, right? Are they studying items that may be dangerous? Are they returning items to where they belong? Are they trying to destroy them or keep them away from a more sinister evil, who I have not yet revealed who it is, the evil mastermind? And then we also had a blog where I talked about kind of how I arrived at that theme, which was last week, maybe.
Mm-hmm.
Uh,
Yeah.
yeah.
Time
So,
passes, but recent. You can find it on our blogs.
yeah.
Um, I want to two things I want to mention. One is circle back. Chat pointed out that Lost Omens Impossible Lands, the hardcover, will be coming out. I believe it's scheduled for November. Say a little prayer that the demons of international shipping allow it to
Yeah.
arrive on time. And this adventure path will go on for 6 months, and we know not all of you start it the month it releases. So, I mean, some do, but some are waiting to finish up adventure paths that they're currently playing. So make sure that you pick up the Lost Omens Impossible Lands as well in order to play and enjoy Bloodlords. And speaking of other hardcover covers, in terms of the year of Boundless Wonders, I should think that the Grand Bazaar is full of items.
Yeah.
So if you're a player looking, to have access to more Boundless Wonders, certainly the society. I'm sure the society scenarios deal with individual items, but if you're looking for awesome items in general, Grand Bazaar is already out, and Treasure Vault has been announced. Um,
Hmm.
so I would say connect all those dots. Can you say do scenarios have to do with items quite a bit, or
Yes. Yeah.
like you're questing, trying to figure out what they do or where they came from, or sounds it doesn't sound like you're trying to retrieve them necessarily because there's a big
Yeah,
cache
not
of them.
necessarily. It's more we have these, and what do we do with them, and how do we learn about them, um, and how do we keep them out of evil hands and that kind of thing. Um, as for
Yeah,
Grand Bazaar, we may be visiting some of the characters introduced in that book, so not only using some of the items, or maybe you can find some of the items in the adventures, but also there's some very fun characters in that book that we may get to role play with in various adventures.
fun.
Um, Treasure Vault, as you mentioned, is obviously going to be a great resource for me as a developer and
Yeah,
storyteller to hook into some of that content, even if it's coming out a bit later. Um, and also just full of cool stuff for us to use as rewards in the scenarios, for players. We like to sprinkle in items that you can find in the scenario and then maybe get a little discount on that item when you're purchasing it for your character, or gain access to an uncommon option or a rare option. We have other rewards in some of the early scenarios in season 4, that are things like intelligent items that you can get. I won't spoil what scenario or what kind of item, but there's all kinds of cool stuff we're doing with magic items in year 4.
nice. You've given me. I have a question, but you've also given me some inspiration because I've been writing those occasional blogs that promote
Yeah.
subscriptions and
Oh
give
yeah.
people a preview of
With
things
your
that are
merchant.
coming. And I
Yeah.
and right, my Icar Slinger,
Yeah.
she's the NPC I got to create to sort of be in world, but break the fourth wall, so to speak, and talk about products. And so I'm gonna have to use her to look at some of the scenarios you're writing and see if I can't work some of those items into the
Yeah.
next blog.
Yeah. We should talk.
Um, yeah, we should. So does this going is there any geographical region that this season is going to focus on and develop
Hmm.
more, or is it going to be all over the place? Any
Um,
spoilers there?
well, season 3, the Year of Shattered Sanctuaries, was very focused on the inner sea nations because it
Mm-hmm.
was telling stories about some of the past Pathfinder Society factions, which were focused on the inner sea. And so for year 4, we will have adventures in some of those regions, but we're looking at more broadly. So we don't have one area we're focusing on, but we have several adventures taking place in the Impossible Lands, in the Golden Road region, um,
Uh-huh.
uh, kind of just farther out from the inner sea in every direction, and a few in Absalom as well. That's where the Grand Lodge is, kind of the headquarters of the Pathfinder Society in Galarian, and so that's where the
Mm-hmm.
Vault of Items is. That's where the season will kick off, and but we're kind of going all over the place. Yeah, so we
Mm.
definitely want to encourage people to use that Impossible Lands book. So we will have some impossible. I mean, plus it's just an awesome setting. So we will have some adventures there. We'll have
Right.
some all over. Yeah.
So you'll lean into what's already been written so that people can enjoy the books that we've already created and then integrate in new books as they get released. But generally it's a pretty good place for people to jump in to this season,
Yeah.
start playing Pathfinder Society, and hit the ground running.
Hmm.
Pardon me. Um, and are there any questions from chat about what they'd like to find out about the Pathfinder Society year ahead, or um, I have more questions for Mike, but and it's tough because of course it hasn't launched yet, but
Yeah.
it's an opportunity to get some sneak peeks. So throw me your questions, either about Bloodlords or Pathfinder Society. Um, we've talked a little bit about the impetus of the reason for the theme of this year. We've talked a little bit about where it might go, what books it uses. Let's see. Let's say you're brand new to the Starfinder Society. The Grand Lodge, you said is in the city of Absalom, and that's kind of like
Yeah.
their their main headquarters. And the purpose is I think intentionally, just to be meta for a moment. They're not what the Pathfinder Society is not. Or should not be, or murder hobos. I mean, I'm sure there's lots of jokes about that, but the point is that they are explorers, that they are historians, that there are. It's not just a mercenary group, is it? I mean, there are lots of fantasy fiction campaigns built around just being mercenaries, and oh, by the way, we sell bounties, so it's not like we're above that concept. Um, but help people frame what it is the Pathfinder Society does and how it's different. Because for
Yeah.
goodness sake,
So
Pathfinder is named after Pathfinder Society.
right. Yeah, essentially they're adventuring scholars and historians. You might say
Mm-hmm.
archaeologists sometime, although certainly they've done some irresponsible, grab and go type missions in the past. A lot of what we focused on in year 3 was kind of looking back at some of the past actions of the society and some of its old habits and re-examining those. And but essentially, the Pathfinder Society, it's not an expressly good aligned organization, but it's an organization that would rather do good than bad. because that, makes the world a better, safer place and easier to accumulate and preserve knowledge and artifacts. And so they are largely explorers. There are different, just like there are different
Mm-hmm.
factions in Geb, there are different factions among the Pathfinder Society with different things they focus on. So you have the Horizon Hunters who focused on exploration and glory. You have the Grand Archive that's much more focused on that knowledge aspect. You have the Vigilant Seal is going to have a lot of opinions on the items in Year of Boundless Wonder because they're all about containing problems and if the Pathfinder Society grabs a cursed item and spreads a curse everywhere, the Vigilant Seal shows up and be like, no, we need to
Right.
contain everything. We need to stop evil from spreading.
I just realized that there is a very popular TV show right now, The Wheel of Time, which is a separate and distinct legal
mm,
intellectual property. Um, and they have, there's like Ajaz, right? And they have this group of this organization that has different focuses, right? So the Pathfinder Society is sort of like that in that there's factions within the larger organization. So if someone is involved in fantasy fiction, that's going to be very
yeah.
from those books. Um, and also, anecdotally, I've been reading The Prince of Wolves, the novel, the Pathfinder Tales novel, which definitely has to do with a Pathfinder Society, a half-elven Pathfinder Society member who goes on an exploration, an adventure, looking for a missing Pathfinder Society member,
Mm-hmm.
along with his sidekick bodyguard, who's a tiefling, and yeah, very a great way to understand, to get into the lore of Pathfinder Society. If you're interested in that, all of those Pathfinder Tales novels take place in the world of Galarian, and yeah, they were written during the time of Pathfinder First Edition, all but and everything still resonates. The organizations, the lore is still a really great complement for people who want to sink their teeth into Pathfinder Second Edition materials.
And
Let's
we
see if
still
there's any other questions.
see
Oh, go ahead.
we still see some of those characters in current Pathfinder Society scenarios. Sometimes they do turn up from the novels.
Yeah,
So we don't do it a
yeah.
lot, but we do it sometimes. So you get to occasionally see what they're up to these days. I can't wait to
There's a
hold
lot
Geb
of
Chain and see
right. Yeah, I'm looking at chat and jokes, murder hobo jokes, and then just a lot of enthusiasm for adventuring in Geb. I think that's a nation and an area that people have been super curious about for a long time.
Yeah.
And I'm not aware my Pathfinder First Edition adventure path knowledge is not anywhere near Mark Moreland's, for example. Who it has encyclopedic knowledge. But I'm not aware of any adventure paths really going to Geb. And are you aware of Pathfinder Society scenarios that have explored Geb
Mm,
in the
we
back
haven't,
in your first
no,
edition days?
haven't done
So really,
much
this
in
is
Geb. Yeah.
yeah. I mean, it's such a unusual location with being so undead focused. I feel like it really needed Book of the Dead. It really needed
Mm.
an AP devoted to it before you could really go there.
Yeah,
And
it's a
now's the
pretty
time.
unfriendly place for your typical adventuring group just because of the it's an evil nation. It's positive energy is outlawed, and so you're not going to make a lot of friends there unless you're working within the system, which is what we did. We did the Bloodlords Adventure
Yeah,
Path. It's about you're fighting aspects of that system, but you're also part of it, at least as the adventure path presents the scenario to you. Obviously, GMs could run whatever they want with it, but
great. Well, I don't see any other questions in chat about Pathfinder Society. I'm sure there will be more as we get closer to um, launching it at Gen Con. That's the first weekend of August. There'll be both physical and online society play. Are they
Hmm.
still open to having online GMs? I'm not sure if that window has closed.
Oh, I'm not sure.
Yeah,
I
well,
also
um,
not aware
we'll
off the
follow
top of
up.
my head. Yeah,
Yeah. So, you know, never hesitate to reach out to Pathfinder Society if you're looking for a game and you want to play Pathfinder. There's always a way to get you involved. There's always room at the table. That's why Pathfinder Society exists. Um, and because we know it's sometimes, depending on where you're located, it can be hard to find a gaming group. That's what makes Pathfinder Society so awesome. Um, let's see. Are there any high level society play adventure scenarios that you predict coming up
we're
this
gonna keep
year?
we're gonna
What's
do
the
more higher
pattern?
level. Yeah, I mean, as the campaign goes on, characters on average will have more opportunities to get to those higher levels. So yeah, we'll do more
Mm-hmm.
higher level society play as time goes on.
Great.
Not tons
Yeah,
more.
you have a
Yeah, but
yeah, it's a funnel. It's a or a pyramid.
yeah,
You need to create the society, the scenarios majority of people will be able to access. Um, Great. Do you? I didn't check in with you before we started. Do you have anything in particular you want to spoil about
sure,
something you're working on that you're excited about?
sure.
About a
Uh,
product that is up and coming?
I have yet to reveal the villain of year four, but I can tell
Oh
you that
goodness.
very soon in one of these scenarios that is coming out next week. If you want to know more about who's been behind thing, uh, behind the schemes in Pathfinder Society campaign so far, and may be heavily involved in the near future, check out our scenarios this month. I won't tell you which one,
Excellent.
so you have to play both.
You have to try them all. Well, and that's just it. I get the feeling the the current season is going to lead us into the next season. So
Yeah,
don't hesitate to get involved in the year of Boundless Wonder. Just jump
yeah.
right in now, and that
It,
way
it's
you'll
yeah.
understand. You'll have the context to go forward.
It's got a good fresh start with the intro scenario. That's design. I wrote that scenario that's coming out at Gen Con. It's designed as a fresh start for the new season, but it certainly also builds on things that have happened already. So
Exciting. Well, thank you. You've spent the last hour with me, and I really appreciate the time that you've taken to share with us all of the insights about Zombie Feast, the first volume of the Blood Pathfinder Bloodlords Adventure Path. Um,
yeah,
you that releases at the end of um, July. The release date should be. Let's see if I've got that
dinner
right.
time releases at dinner time.
Indeed. So that should be available July 27th in both print and PDF. And you can subscribe to the Pathfinder Adventure Path line so that they just automatically get shipped to you and you'll get all six and you won't have to worry about it. Or if you want to support your favorite local game store, because we love that too, just go tell them you're interested in Bloodlords. And I'm sure they would be happy to set you up your own subscription. Like just make sure it's like a comic. When you go into the comic book store and they'd have the latest issue of X-Man waiting. I'm sure that your favorite local game store would be happy to have your volume of the Bloodlords waiting for you every month. And we really want to. We're here to be if you don't have a favorite local game store, that's what the Paizo store is all about, is being your store if you don't have one that's local. But if you do, there, they're a great location, and that's what Pathfinder Society, to some extent, is largely about as well. Is making sure that there's something you can do, um, that so that people can find games, but also it's a way to support your favorite local game store because we provide those scenarios to participating game stores. So there's a lot of synergy there. That's what I'm talking
Hmm.
about. Using my marketing words. Um, so thank you, Mike, for
Thanks, Aaron.
joining us and talking to us. And we'll let you go. We'll take a break for about 5 minutes. We'll watch some cool Pathfinder and Starfinder videos, and when we come back, um, we will talk to Jason Keeley about Starfinder, the new Starfinder adventure path that actually is starting just next week. So, yeah, thanks for joining us, and we'll be back in after the break.
Foundry Virtual Tabletop presents the Pathfinder Beginner Box, an amazing introduction to Pathfinder 2nd Edition like you've never seen it before. The Beginner Box walks you through everything you need to know to be a game master or player and includes a dungeon crawling adventure designed to teach you and your party Pathfinder's rules. Your players can choose from 4 iconic pre-built characters like a rogue, wizard, fighter, or cleric, one of dozens of additional characters from the system, or they can make their own from scratch. Once everyone's ready to play, you can jump into Minas Under Otari. The adventure includes meticulously upscaled versions of the original maps and a beautiful set of new scenes from Narky maps using Forgotten Adventures assets that include overhead tile support and animated lights. Improved visuals are just the beginning, and your players will be fully immersed as they delve beneath Otari with Sirenscape-provided background music for setting the scene, and ambient audio for creature sound effects, environmental effects, and more. Journal entries linked to the scene and to each other will make it easy to run the adventure, and custom styling makes it clear when to play certain tracks or run an encounter. The automation and tight rules integration of the Pathfinder 2e system makes it a breeze to run complex combat encounters even for new game masters. And once the battle is over and your players have emerged victorious, you can use loot sheets to distribute treasure from their fallen enemies. Every creature you'll face includes high-resolution portrait and token art that are pre-placed on scenes along with hidden traps and hazards just waiting to be sprung on your players. Once the menace under Otari is dealt with, think of all the other adventures you'll go on. But you may discover that what lies underneath Otari is just the beginning.
In a catastrophic instant, faster-than-light travel through the plane known as the Drift failed, with travelers vanishing in mid-flight, communications scrambling, and the Drift's progenitor god, Triune, falling mysteriously silent. In the aftermath, empires cling to far-flung holdings, opportunists exploit the chaos, and everyone demands to know what triggered this Drift crisis and how they can solve it. The Starfinder Drift Crisis hardcover details this massive galaxy-wide event, introducing a vast array of new conflicts, opportunities, and stories. Discover the influential factions that are restoring order, profiting on the wreckage, or perpetrating the pandemonium. Experience the Drift Crisis with 20 detailed adventure seeds that range from survival to saving the galaxy, 24 new creatures, and 6 detailed NPC profiles. Equip your characters with the latest technologies and techniques for surviving the upheaval with new gear and character options. Game Masters will find details on how the Drift Crisis affects previously published adventure paths, from Dead Suns through Fly for Your Die. When and how the Drift Crisis ends in your campaign is up to you and your players, and you'll find plenty of options of the Drift Crisis hardcover. The galaxy will never be the same again. The Drift Crisis is the start of a year-long event in the Starfinder universe. Start your adventure today with the Starfinder One-Shot Before the Storm and the Drift Crisis Flip Mat, and then continue to the Drift Crashers and Drift Hackers adventure paths. Reach for the stars today and pick up your Drift Crisis essentials at your favorite local game store, online retailer, or driftcrisis.com.
sometimes a bullet is best. In Alkenstar, lead is the law. But who turns the wheels that drive the city of smog? Two names come to mind. Ambrose Muglin, banker, tycoon, megalomaniac. With a fortune in blood money, Muglin's willing to crush anyone who stands between him and his next windfall. Angelique Lovelace, deputy shield marshal and corruption incarnate. She and the crooked marshals under her thumb enforce not Alkenstar's laws, but rather their own version of wasteland justice. You had the misfortune of being in the wrong place at the wrong time. For that, these power brokers upended your life, destroyed your reputation, and forced you to become an outlaw on the run. Luckily for us, they made one big mistake. They left you alive. Join other desperados to pay back the villains who ruined you. Together, destroy your enemies, clear your names, and enjoy sweet revenge. Just remember, real power doesn't come from the black powder in a barrel, but from the hand that lights the fuse. Because it isn't the clockwork guards, the mutant monsters, or even the political elites who control Alkenstar's most important machinery. No, there's only one group that keeps the gears moving in this city, and that's you. The Outlaws of Alkenstar.
Hello and welcome back to Paizo Live. My name is Aaron Shanks, Paizo's director of marketing. It occurs to me I probably didn't change my own title at the bottom of my my lower third there. That's kind of funny. It's a very new promotion, director of marketing. And I'm happy to let's see. For the last hour, we've been talking with Mike Kimmel about Pathfinder Bloodlords and Pathfinder Society, Year of Boundless Wonder. And that was great. So rewind if you missed it, or go back and watch this later on YouTube. That's what I'm trying to spit out. It's Friday Brain. And now I get the privilege of talking to Jason Keeley about the next Starfinder adventure path, Drift Crashers. Jason, welcome to Paizo Live.
Oh, thanks for having me.
Yeah, thanks for joining us.
Yeah.
So let's give everybody some context. We've been beating the drum about the Drift Crisis for a few months now. Of course, I think it was announced at Gen Con last year. Do you have an elevator speech about what the Drift Crisis is?
Yeah.
Or do you want me to launch into my version?
Yeah, well, the Drift Crisis is sort of a galaxy-wide event that we're sort of doing throughout the whole setting, in which the Drift, which is our faster-than-light plane travel, breaks and doesn't work so good for a little bit. And so, it's all about what happens during that breaking and what happens afterwards, and how characters can get involved in this catastrophe.
Throw a monkey wrench in the works of your regularly scheduled Starfinder.
Exactly. Whether or
Just
not
to
you're already running
shake
a
it up a bit.
campaign, shake things up, or you can start a whole new campaign that focuses on this particular crisis.
Indeed. So we have released Drift Crisis, the hardcover, which allows you to apply this catastrophe to your ongoing campaign. Or there's a ton of adventure seeds in there to launch your homebrew dreams. Take some of those ideas and flesh them out, which I think is super innovative, because you actually gave GMs a lot of structure about what they could be, but then have left them to flesh it out. And then there is this adventure path, Drift Crashers, which is our canonical adventure to set in the Drift crisis.
Right.
I'm mixing my
The
drift.
Crisis.
The drift
It's a lot of
crash is the event.
Yeah.
The drift crash is the event.
gonna
The
say
drift
drift a lot.
crisis. Yeah, we're gonna say drift a lot. The crash is the initial incident. The crisis is everything that happens after.
Ongoing. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, the Drift Crashers is one of two APs that sort of focus on the Drift Crisis that'll be coming out over the next year.
Every other month there is a new volume.
Every other month, right?
And that comes out first one at the next week, volume 1.
That's right. Yeah, volume 1 is called A Perfect Storm, and it's by Jessica Redekop, sort of a longtime Paizo freelancer, but I think this might be one of the first adventures she's written for us. So that's great. She jumped right in and knocked it out of the park. It does a lot of stuff. It is the Drift Crashers AP as a whole is about surviving the initial drift crash of the Drift Crisis and trying to find your way back home. And
Indeed.
in that process,
yeah,
all kinds of places.
Yeah.
So the first line.
Go ahead.
Go ahead. No, you go ahead.
Oh, I was just gonna be the marketing guy and insert the idea that there's a one shot called Before the Storm, and that's that is a first level one shot, all digital. You can download it, and you can actually play that as a prequel to this adventure path. It was written by Jake Tondreau, and that can be used as a prequel for this adventure path, or you can use it to launch your own story set within the Drift Crisis.
Yes,
all right, back to you correct. And this AP.
Sorry, yeah, that's fine. No, yeah, the Before the Storm, yeah, basically there you can get pre-generated characters that we have, like all of our one shots, but those pre-generated characters are some of our iconics. They're not necessarily made for this particular one shot, but we also encourage you to make your own characters. This is the first one shot where we encourage you to make your own, and then you can take those characters after you run through Before the Storm and go right into Drift Crashers. There'll be some tweaking. There's some advice in that one shot to say how to take it to the first adventure of Drift Crashers. And in this AP, again, we're sort of a crew of a particular ship that gets caught up in some planar nonsense that happens because of the drift crisis, the drift crash. You get tossed around, and you have to deal with getting thrown. It's a little bit like the beginning of Star Trek Voyager in a lot of ways, where you get sort of thrown to a place where you're not expecting to go to, and you've got to figure out with your spaceship how to get home. And it's not easy because it takes you 3 volumes to do it.
Indeed. I remember the TV show Lost in Space. That would be certainly something you could watch for inspiration. Boy, I don't remember what decade that was, but one of my favorite comic books called Excalibur had a plot line called oh goodness. It was about traveling sideways through time, and now I don't remember. But it was essentially a planar trying to get home by the cross-time caper. That's what it was. Excalibur played the cross-time caper, meaning it was traveling across dimensions. And so I think people might recognize the concept and dive right into it.
Sure. Another related concept is the television show Sliders, if you remember that one. That's jumping between alternate universes, because there's a little bit, now to give a little bit of a spoiler, there's some alternate universe shenanigans going on in this first volume as well.
That's a great spoiler because there's no way you can be prepared for that. You don't know what it's going to be. You just know.
It's like those episodes of Star Trek with the mirror universe. Jake Tondreau, who was the sort of lead developer and the brains behind this particular adventure path, just decided this first volume would be everything. Planar travel and time travel and universe jumping. It would just be kind of everything. And then we get even more. Exciting. Somehow it goes even more bonkers in the preceding volumes.
The second AP.
No. The second volume of Drift Crashers and the third volume of Drift Crashers. Yes, indeed. It goes. The second volume of Drift Crashers does some stuff with some fun gods. Well, I want to say that Desna makes an appearance in that particular one, and then the third volume of Drift Crashers, second volume of Drift Crashers is called A Nightmare Scenario by Jenny Rajewski. And she wrote a lot of fun stuff about Desna on that, and Cynosure, Desna's realm, which is also a star, North Star, I believe. And then the third volume is Masters of Time and Space by you guessed it, Ron Lundeen, who basically wrote a whole bunch of fourth dimensional, just multi-dimensional weirdness in this artifact that these aliens that can kind of basically be invisible because they're in the fifth dimension or something along those lines. It's a lot of stuff, and you got to work your way through that. It's called the Tesseract, this artifact in space, and you can imagine it's does not follow the normal rules of gravity and time and space.
It's going to be bonkers. That sounds great.
Yes,
And
it's going to. Yeah,
and
you can quote me on that. It's going to be bonkers.
that's the sweet spot for Starfinder, as far as I'm concerned.
Indeed.
It's just, Starfinder always has had a great sense of humor, of trying coloring outside of the lines in a fun sci-fi science fantasy way, and yet with all that humor and craziness, still capable of a lot of edge of your seat excitement and scariness and horror, if that's the direction you want to take it. So bravo to you and your team for hitting all of those notes, because I expect the Drift Crisis, the Drift Crashers will hit all of those same notes. The adventure path is out. I mean, the adventure. Pardon me. The
first volume is out. Or will
the player's guide. That's what I'm trying to shout out about. The player's guide is out, so people can go to our blog and download that free PDF and start to prepare their adventure. And you can I would also suggest that you reference the Adventuring in the Drift Crisis video on YouTube from PaizoCon. Also, the Galaxy in Crisis. The Galaxy in Crisis is really, I think, about the hardcover and kind of the concept of the crisis in general. And then Adventuring in the Drift Crisis is the video that dives deep into these adventure paths. Put it on my marketing hat. I'll also say driftcrisis.com is the landing page that you want to go to get all things Drift Crisis, to see the big picture of how the Starfinder team has woven together all these different product lines and elements. That's the driftcrisis.com. That's the place you want to go to make sure you get the flip mat and the hardcover and all the associated products. Throw your questions at us, chat, for Starfinder Drift Crisis questions. And in the meantime, we'll maybe just take a closer look at that player's guide.
Sure, yeah. One thing that we wanted to do with this one is to talk a little bit about how the group dynamic is, because you're all meant to be members of a crew of a ship, and this ship is going to be your home for the entire AP. So you want to make it your own, and you want to have these tied in. You're not just a group of disparate adventurers who just happen to get called in by a single patron or something along those lines. So the player's guide presents you with some communal backgrounds. Oh no, that to choose from. Excuse me. That give you all a little bit of a benefit for basically you want to choose this as a group, some suggested themes that go along with each communal background, and those things include like a sports team, or just a family, or a bunch of traveling entertainers, or a bunch of itinerant priests, that kind of thing.
Right.
In addition to that, once you've picked out that, in addition to that, you also have other people on the crew of your spaceship that and each player gets to make a prominent NPC that you have a personal connection with. So, and we just sort of give you general things like, is it the chief of security? Is it the ship's doctor? Is it just a scholar? That kind of stuff. And those give you a little bit of benefits as you play. And you're going to be checking in with them as you come back to the ship again and again, and then finally, everyone gets to choose as a group a sort of a modification to the ship that also gives you a little bit of a bonus. Like you have a nice chapel on board, or do you have a good custom user interface on the ship's UI, that kind of stuff that you can really make because we want you to make this ship your own. But I think my favorite one on that one is the jailbroken food dispensers. So you got all your food dispensers, and you've tweaked the firmware to make stuff that you want, make stuff that's more to your liking.
I love it. Hey, there's a question from chat about whether or not this adventure path is going to have Foundry support like the new Pathfinder APs. And if you don't mind, I will take this and turn this into a Paizo Live spoiler. In that, no, not at this time. Foundry is focusing on Pathfinder right now, and we're getting our workflow down. But we are our next live play that we're producing for our own Twitch channel, and that will be posted on YouTube, is going to be Drift Crisis themed. And we're in the process of putting it all together. So I don't have exactly all the names and titles, but it's going to be GM'd by someone within Paizo. And that GM we always let our GMs choose the VTT that they want to use for our live streams. And that GM has chosen Foundry. And so you will be able to see how Foundry and Starfinder play well together by someone who knows Starfinder and who knows Foundry, even without official products being created for it. That's not exactly what you're looking for yet, but I think it's still exciting news, and it's baby steps in the right direction. So, so that is one of the spoilers that I will share with everybody right now, is that we are working on a Drift Crisis live play. Great.
Yeah, that's just great that they're going to use Foundry, because I love Foundry personally, and it does have a good the Starfinder rule set that you can put in. It works out pretty well.
Yeah, and we are sort of in a growing age of VTT. I mean, certainly kicked off by the pandemic, and now
definitely.
I mean, and I can tell you as the marketing guy, I'm having exciting conversations with Roll20 and Fantasy Grounds too. So I'm just saying there's lots of good options, and everybody is innovating right now. And just stay tuned from all of our VTT partners are trying to bring their best A game. Each one of them has a different niche, and they're all trying to bring it. So that's pretty cool. All right, back to the AP.
Yes.
So we've got these backgrounds, these communal backgrounds. We've talked about the crew and how there's a key NPC that you get to make, and is sort of your buddy on the ship, and maybe your next character, depending on how things go. I like that.
Hey, you never know. Yeah.
It might be your.
Why not?
Might be your backup, and then ways to customize the ship. And then there's gear, innovative gear. Specifically, there's gear and weapons. Things that are kind of specific to this AP, and then there's the Planar Traveler theme. And I want to say this was also in the Drift Crisis hardcover. Is that right?
Or
was this unique to this AP?
This is a specifically unique theme to this player's guide.
Oh, okay,
yes,
great.
There might have been something similar in the Drift Crisis.
Okay, yeah, I wasn't sure.
Yeah, there's planar scions and stuff like that.
Good. More is better.
Yeah,
I was like,
exactly.
You guys,
all kinds of good themes.
Yeah. So a new theme, Planar Traveler, and there are lots of Drift Crisis focused themes within the hardcover that you might want to consider when playing this adventure.
We didn't say it yet, but this is a first level AP. Starts at first level.
Yeah.
Later on in the year, we'll have a sort of sequel to this one that picks up where this one leaves off, essentially, level wise.
I don't think I have it in front of me, but what sort of back matter might we expect in the first volume? Um, do you happen to know what is in store for folks? And probably that theme, actually.
Yeah.
It's probably
Well, yeah. I mean,
repeated.
this player's guide is in the volume within the
Yeah.
volume itself.
Right. Okay, let me please pause while I download cool things. Go on.
So one that's actually it. One other fun thing that we can talk about in the that's uh, in this first volume. We actually talk a little bit about there's a small article about that focuses a little more on our planar scions, which are our Azamars, our
Mm-hmm.
tieflings,
Yes.
all of the geniekin, that kind of stuff. And then we have in this one introduce Ganzi to Starfinder, which are the people whose ancestors or they've been touched a little bit by the maelstrom, the sort of plane of chaos. So there's basically some
Yes.
alternate species traits in here for specifically for different geniekin or tieflings or
Mm-hmm.
asmars that you can pick to sort of spice things up. We had alternate species traits originally in the character operations manual for all the base species and all the legacy ones. But every once in a while we like to mix them up and throw them in for because Starfinder has so many playable species that
Yeah.
throwing in a couple more here and there every once in a while is always fun to sort of say, oh yeah, okay, well you're an Azamar who's basically born of an armor-plated celestial or something like that. Here, have this
Yeah.
different alternate species trait instead of the normal ones.
I know that I remember it. I'm skipping on the name of the adventure path, but it's the sun themed adventure path.
Yeah. Dawn of Flame has all of the genie
Dawn of Flame
interspersed in
has
there.
all of the geniekin, exactly. So if you're looking for an elemental themed planar scion, go there. Or there are also repeated in the Alien Archives, I believe. Eventually they get no?
These didn't get picked up. Not in any of our current Alien Archives now.
Okay.
So, but they're on the they're
then,
on archives.
Go
right?
to go to Archives of Nethys. It's all there. So go to Archives of Nethys, our officially licensed SRD partner, system reference document partner, who has all the goodies. And don't forget to contribute to their Patreon because they're doing all of that for you. So go and get your planar scion information if you want to play geniekin. Or soon you'll have more tiefling options, more Asimar options, because Asmar, thank you. Because this AP is coming out. So looking at the table of contents, we've got The Perfect Storm by Jessica Redicott. And we've got Chosen of Chaos. That's the back matter that you're mentioning, and that's by Joshua Hennington.
Well, that's the player's guide.
That's the player's guide. Oh, great. Okay.
Yes.
So great. So Joshua wrote the player's guide. It's repeated in the back of the AP. And we pulled it out, and it's a separate PDF for the players so that you can give it away for free. Boom. And then there is the Adventuring Toolbox, the Adventure Toolbox. And that has the Blood of the Plains, which is your planar scion details. And Alien Archives with more monsters, some of which might be found in here, so we're not going to talk about them. And the campaign outline for the GM. Yeah. And then a Codex of Worlds, which oftentimes has to do with the plot of the adventure. So I've learned not to talk about it. And a starship. So there's a Codex of Worlds and a starship, and both of those probably have to do with this plot. So, pardon me. Although in this case, the primordial. Yeah, no, never mind.
The Primer, yeah. There's a ship that you'll be. That's the ship you'll be flying, or what happens to the ship after it goes through the drift crash. Basically, there's
Yeah.
some stuff is going to
Yeah.
happen there. I don't want to give it away too much. I mean, I've already said planar
Yeah.
travel and going to other dimensions. So I think that's plenty.
What you're seeing in front of you right now is the cover art for the one shot Before the Storm. So don't forget to pick that up, because really our one shots are like, I don't know, they're less than $10. They're really inexpensive and you should get them. And they're designed to be, our one shots are really designed to play. We were talking earlier about VTTs. I mean, it's a digital product. It's really designed to sort of be played online but not picking any particular VTT. I mean, you could probably do it via Zoom if you wanted to. So, yeah, keep that in mind. It's Paizo's opportunity to explore in supporting VTT play that, Thurston has been taking the ball and running with that, and so that's super exciting because he knows what he's doing. So yay. And yeah, let's see, other questions from chat. Nothing new. Here's more images from the upcoming AP. So, not necessarily the first volume, but we were talking about alternate realities, and I think you're seeing some of the alternate reality versions of our iconics in some of those images. They're not the iconics, but that's been fun lately in Pathfinder. And in Pathfinder Book of the Dead, you saw some undead versions of our iconics, and then in this one, you're finding some sort of dark mirror.
They may or may not be, evil.
I don't know.
A little bizarre.
Yeah.
Mirror universe.
I don't know,
think
but
evil mirror universe.
Yeah, exactly. Like, they may not be evil, but they don't look the same. That's for sure. And that's some exciting art. All right. Well, we have reached 5:35. And Bizarro Iconics. Yeah, there's a whole product line right there. Mark Moreland. So, are there any other questions about Drift Crashers? Otherwise, Jason, do you have any spoilers you want to share before you sign off?
There's two things I want to say real quick is that get all the Drift Crashers, because in that second volume, when we talk a little bit about Desna, there's a really if you want superpowered high-heeled shoes as an item that you can buy for your character, you're gonna want to get that second volume. And I just kind of want to quickly tease Drift Hackers, which is the follow-up to Drift Crashers, which will start coming out in December and run through next year. Has a lot of also sort of fun stuff. That is the sort of canonical ending to the Drift Crisis. So if you want to see how we're going to solve it and what happens, check out that AP.
Exactly. Yeah, that'll be great. We'll launch a new Starfinder AP in December and a new Pathfinder AP in January. Great. Thanks for taking a look at Starfinder Drift Crashers with us. And you go have yourself a good Friday evening and a great weekend, Jason. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you.
We'll take a break.
My pleasure.
And we'll take another break. And then when we come back, we're going to talk to James Case about Pathfinder Dark Archive, the next rulebook that's coming out. So come back for that.
Gather your crew and prepare to embark on the journey of a lifetime as you explore the packed worlds of the Starfinder universe, taking on the role of a science fantasy hero customized to fit your playstyle. But danger lurks amongst the stars. Will you fight back with advanced weaponry and cunning tactics? Or will your hero wield the devastating forces that fuse magic and technology together to alter reality? Your crew must come together if you have any hope of victory. In Starfinder, every decision drives the adventure as you build an epic saga with your friends. Bring your story to life in a game where the fate of the worlds rests on the answer to the most important question of all. What do you do? Begin your journey into the Starfinder universe today with the Starfinder Beginner Box, now available at Paizo.com, your local gaming store, and anywhere else adventure can be found.
Welcome to New Harmony. This recently discovered planet in the vast, currently devoid of intelligent life, has been designated as a settlement site. And with the generous backing from the likes of the Aspith Consortium, the Starfinder Society, the Xeno Wardens, and the Viscarium, that's where you come in. As administrators of your very own land charter, it'll be your responsibility to explore the lush, fertile landscape, catalog the various forms of flora and fauna, construct projects that ensure the health, safety, and prosperity of your citizens. Negotiate with leaders of other charters for the benefit of all. Uncover ancient ruins and solve a mystery millennia in the making. At the end, the world of New Harmony is yours, should you survive. Horizons of the Vast is a Kingmaker and space-style adventure path for 1st to 12th level characters.
On the southern coast of Starstone Isle, not far from the town of Otari, the Gauntlet stands shrouded by cloying mists atop a centuries-old ruin in the Fogfin Swamp. Now, a pallid new light glows from within the ancient edifice, beckoning novice explorers to delve deep into the marsh to discover the truth behind the awakened radiance. The town elders of Otari say that the old lighthouse has been abandoned for ages, that the swamp itself holds little danger to the town. The town elders are wrong. Into the Mega Dungeon, the all-new Abomination Vault's adventure path for the Pathfinder role-playing game peels back layer after layer of mystery, intrigue, and terror in a 3-volume campaign of dungeon exploration and thrilling discovery, designed especially with new players in mind. The priceless plunder of long centuries awaits those bold enough to enter the sprawling Abomination Vaults, but claiming it requires facing off against a horde of hideous monsters, deadly traps, and vengeful ghosts with long memories and inhuman hungers. The Abomination Vault's adventure path works with the Pathfinder Beginner Box or Pathfinder Core Rulebook and is your perfect gateway to thrilling adventure 500 years in the making.
Hi, welcome back to Paizo Live. I'm Aaron Shanks, your host. And now we're going to talk about Pathfinder Dark Archive. Now, I want you to know that there was a really amazing video called Declassifying the Dark Archive at PaizoCon at the end of May. It's on YouTube now. That is an incredibly broad and rather deep dive into what that book is going to be. We've also posted the Meet the Iconics blog for Neos. And just today, a new blog, Alien, our psychic. And today we have James Case joining us, who is the developer in charge of the hardcover, to do a deep dive into one particular case file. James, thank you for joining us.
Hey, hi everyone. I'm senior designer James Case, and I am the project lead on Dark Archive. So,
I just lost your audio.
this is our big book of
There it is.
paranormal content that's coming out at Gen Con this year. So this will have a deep dive into all things kind of weird and spooky. So for those of you who may not be familiar, back in the first edition of Pathfinder, we had something called the Dark Archive faction. And they were basically a branch of the Pathfinder Society that was all about collecting weird things and investigating mysteries. And they kind of got dissolved in the big reorganization into second edition. And this book is what happened if somebody kind of before their clearance got revoked, grabbed whatever files they could and just bolted out the door with them. So this book has 2 new classes, the Psychic, which is an occult spellcaster that uses all kinds of cool magic. And they have the power to basically take their normal focus cantrips and then amp them up for even greater effects. And the Thaumaturge, which is your kind of occult detective, magpie of traditions, user of mystic implements and sympathetic kind of folk magic. So those are our 2 new classes. And then the rest of the book is, you can see the 2 iconics here on the cover. That's Mios the Thaumaturge on the left. They are from Ustalov. And on the right, we have Thalion the Psychic. He is from Rahadum, and his Meet the Iconics just went up today. So if you want to get a kind of more insight into Mios and Thalion, you can go check out both of those Meet the Iconic blogs. They were written by Avi Cool and Linda Zayas Palmer. I think they are both super cool new characters. So we have 8 case files in this book, and each one goes into a little bit of a different paranormal topic. We have cryptids, we have secret societies, we have deviant abilities, we have mirrors and imposters, cults, curses and pacts, temporal anomalies, and lastly, we have mindscapes. And today we thought we would do a deep dive into the third of these, deviant abilities. So a big theme that came up a lot in Dark Archive is, well, Galarian has spellcasters and dragons and a literal spaceship that crashed in Numeria. So what is paranormal if all of this is kind of, within the bounds of what is quote unquote normal for the setting? Deviant abilities are strange supernatural powers that break the rules. So these aren't spells you cast. These aren't things that come from your bloodline. These aren't divine blessings. They can kind of come from anywhere. And here you can see Valeros maybe testing out a new ability, and while Quinn, maybe takes some notes. I really like this art here. All the art in this book is fantastic. This is by Christoph Peters, Sonia Morris, and Sarah Robinson did the art for this whole book. It's really fantastic. I like the kind of Carrie Firestarter Stranger Things vibe of this art very much. So yeah, deviant abilities. Each one of these case files starts with some lore to get you kind of primed for where does this paranormal thing happen over Galarian. And the Deviant Abilities case file is just like that. It starts with a bunch of kind of small reports into various individuals of note who the archive has encountered throughout Galarian. We have, this is by Michael Raccoon, who's one of the cover authors on this book. And I think it's really cool because each one of these abilities is very different. One is a pair of sisters who maybe have an ability that affects plants. One is a noble who the archive has run into in Nidal, who has the power to manipulate silver. There is at least one maybe superpowered criminal running around in Arcadia in Razatlan. So just like a lot of the other, just like all the case files, the scope here is very kind of all over Galarian. We have a lot that come from the Inner Sea, but we're just as likely to have a case file that somebody has noted from Garand or from Arcadia or from Tiansha or stranger places. So I really like this. I think it gives you a really cool kind of, our files indicate this person may or may not have, commanded a bunch of sharks outside the shackles, that kind of thing. So that's kind of how we set the lore in here. But the main part of this file is a new system that you can use to kind of bring these strange abilities to life at your table. So these deviant abilities are something that you can either work into your campaign as the GM as kind of a sort of as a persistent part of the campaign. You know, if everybody wants to begin with some sort of special ability that they have, you can maybe give one to everybody. You can maybe use something like free archetype to give some special feats, or you can just play it as something more transient. You know, there's a lot of maybe episodes of fiction or something where maybe everybody walks by a creepy superpowered monolith, and then, you know, they all find out that they can maybe move objects or, you know, breathe fire or that kind of thing. And so if you do that, you can kind of just give them to people to play with for a session or two. And, you know, maybe then if the adventure moves on, you know, the power will wane or something. So these deviant abilities are very unstable. They're not like, you know, if you're a sorcerer, you're kind of just born with magic. And if you're a wizard, you know, you studied at wizard school for 4 years or however long wizard school is. And even if you're into, you know, even if you're from a more volatile tradition of magic, like if you're an oracle, there are kind of certain rules to it. Whereas these deviant abilities, kind of every time you use them, there's like a roll of the dice to see if it maybe has a backlash on you. So you're kind of gambling with them. There's 3 main abilities we have here, and they're kind of broken into what the archive has classified them as. So the first one is Dragon. Dragon abilities are abilities that deal with manipulating energy in some kinds. Maybe you know, maybe you fell into some kind of super powered pool of lava and now you have some fire powers or something like that. And so these are things like shooting, you know, breathing energy or shooting beams of fire out of your eyes or that kind of thing. The second is the troll classification. This is things like being really strong, regenerating really quickly. It's very kind of physical mutations. And the last one is called the Wraith classification. This one is all about kind of weird spiritual things. You know, you can have ghostly arms that come out of your body, or you can maybe have a spooky wail, or your spirit can kind of wander. So these are kind of the main themes of the abilities we have here. But every time you use one, there might be a chance that, you know, because you didn't learn this power, you didn't really, you know, this power is not part of you, it might blow up in your face, basically. So yeah, those are kind of the 3 sort of main ways you have to play with this. And each power also comes with kind of some small things you can do to customize it just to make it feel a little weirder. So every power has some quirks with it. Maybe every time you shoot beams out of your eyes, it also drains the color out of everything in 5 feet from you. It's just kind of a random effect, you know, that's tied to your ability. Or, you know, maybe whenever your wounds heal, it makes some kind of weird pattern surround you. It's just kind of there to give you something to make it feel a little more unstable and like it's not a real part of your character quite in the same way of something like maybe an ancestry ability. So yeah, I think that these are some kind of cool things that can be used to either to build a character around as maybe a longer part of your campaign, or you know, to just have, if you have your characters wandering through some sort of spooky area, you know, maybe this could be a good way to give them kind of a curveball and maybe put them out of their element a little bit, which is a lot about, you know, what exploring the paranormal is. If you could kind of put everything neatly into a box, it maybe wouldn't seem so mysterious. So yeah,
There's still a lot of mystery in Pathfinder.
Yeah, there's a really good introduction to the book by Tessa Newton where I think she did a really good job kind of capturing the idea of, well, if to know what's paranormal, we kind of have to know what's normal first. And then after that, you know, you can look at things that kind of break the rules. So yeah, with these deviant abilities, there are also ways to kind of further customize them as you level. So maybe let's look at something like the one of the dragon abilities is called Propulsive Leap. So this is our kind of energy manipulating one. And Propulsive Leap is you basically have like jets of fire that come out of your hands or your feet, or maybe some kind of electromagnetic thing, and it lets you fly for a little bit. But like all of these deviant abilities, you can awaken it as you get higher to a higher level, and this lets you kind of nudge it in one of two ways. So one of the awakenings here is one where you can really just book it through the air. You can blast out even more energy, and you can go even faster. But if you don't want to do that, there's also one where every time you take off, it makes an explosion that can damage people. So there's ways to kind of take this ability and then customize it even further to make it a little more, weird and kind of unpredictable. It's one of the things I really like there. Just like all of the case files, after we start with some lore to get you kind of grounded in the mystery, and then after we give you some tools to play with, there's a little mini adventure at the end. So each of the 8 case files has one of these mini adventures that takes place somewhere else on Galarian and really throws you into the paranormal trope. And so this one is no different. This one is called A Song of Making and Unmaking. It's by Luis Loza, and it takes place in Ialdo in Arcadia. And without going too much into it, because I want people to discover it for themselves, this takes place at a kind of castle of scholar monks who have noticed a lot of people manifesting these weird abilities around them that are becoming kind of dangerous and kind of running rampant. And so the PCs get called in to find out what's happening, and maybe they get exposed to the same thing that's causing these abilities to awaken in the populace. So I think it's a fun little dungeon dive kind of a thing that takes place in a part of the world I know a lot of people have been waiting to go towards. So I think it's good fun. That's the third of the 8 adventures, so it's at a little bit of a lower level. Yeah.
So we've talked about lore. We've talked about rule systems. You also talked a little bit about quirks having to do with some of those new deviant abilities. We've talked about the adventure, the adventure that wraps up the case file, and I think also there's an incident report at the end of every case file.
Yeah. Each of these case files, I wouldn't say that these incident reports are maybe part of the case file, but there's these little pieces that kind of separate the files from each other. So, there's more than 8 paranormal tropes out there, and we really wanted to give a good spread of them. So between the main case files are these little incident reports. So these are maybe these little mission statements or maybe mission they're reports that people have written after they've gone off on some adventure or other. So this one here is the Woodpile. This is written by Quinn Murphy, and it talks about a secret enclave of Konrasu somewhere out there in the jungle. The specific area has been redacted. So just like all of the incident reports, this one gives you a little 1-page description of an adventure that can be like either a hook for you to run at your own table, maybe you make this a part of your home campaign, or it can just be something that kind of fleshes out the world. But each one of these gives a little report, and then it ends with some kind of mechanical thing that you take from it. This can be a background, it can be a spell. This one here is the Konrasu coin item, which Konrasus have ties to Aeons, who are some of our like extraplanar creatures. And so this coin kind of has absorbed some of those energies, and if you use it, it can maybe have a little bit of a magical effect happen. So I really like these as ways to kind of get deeper into some of the some kind of classic paranormal tropes that don't get a whole file to themselves. Some are like, this is a secret location. One is a kind of a cursed item that wanders around. One is a creepy spire made out of sand that people are compelled to help build. I think that they cover a really good spread of tropes, and these were pretty open pitch. So, the authors were free to just kind of suggest a couple of them, and then we worked together to find one that would work for the book. So they are really inventive, and some of them I think are quite spooky, and some are quite touching. So quite nice.
Thank you, James. we're approaching our 6 o'clock hour. I will share with everyone that what we've done tonight is let James focus on the Deviant Abilities Case File, but James and I have been working on giving all the case files and the 2 classes to various content creators throughout the Paizoverse community in order to do deep dives on every single one of these different topics. So between now and July 11th, you're going to see exclusive previews about each of the pieces of the Pathfinder Dark Archive. Now, I could tell you that it's going to be a bit of a hunt for you to find these, but it's not going to be a hunt. I'm going to promote the heck out of them.
Is it a hunt?
Who are we kidding?
But it'll be good, I
what-
think, to have all of these different files coming from different people. I think it makes it feel more like a, the organization's reports, which is kind of a big theme of this book.
Indeed. So we've distributed seeds throughout the community, and they will each provide their own perspective and insight about what they've seen in the various case files and classes in Pathfinder Dark Archive. The one that's been announced so far is No Direction next Monday night. They're going to dive into the psychic class.
Yeah.
I've definitely I'm looking forward to see what everybody does with these. James, are there any other revelation? Unfortunately we've run out of time for Q&A, but are there any other? Which it's kind of fun to just leave everybody salivating, to be honest with you, because I know that all of this content is amazing. So, are there any other spoilers you want to share before we sign off for the night? Or is this
I think in sticking with the theme, I know the psychic has 6 main conscious minds, which are specific kinds of psychic power, like telekinesis or telepathy. And I think people have done a good job of guessing kind of what conscious mind gets what cantrips. The distant grasp is our telekinesis one, and that gives you, surprise, surprise, telekinetic projectile, and mage hand, are 2 big moving things around cantrips. But I think one that I've seen people be a little confused about is the unbound step. So the unbound step is all about teleportation, phasing, kind of spatial manipulation. And I know that that's one that people have been like, we don't really have a lot of cantrips that deal with that. And that is why the Deviant Abilities Case File has a bunch of new magic in it to help fill out these things. So there are 2 new cantrips for this psychic in mind. One is called Warp Step, which lets you kind of compress space as you move to get around very quickly, not because you're speeding yourself up, but because you're kind of contracting the distance between you and the target. And of course, if you're a psychic, you can amp it, which lets you cast it more quickly or even just use it to teleport. The other one is called Phase Bolt, which shoots a bolt of energy that kind of dips in and out of phase. So it can, it's better against things that have, some of those incorporeal benefits, or it can slightly get through shields. And then if you are a psychic, you can just snap your fingers and teleport it into your target to deal more damage and stop them from teleporting. So those are the 2 new cantrips from this that were kind of most specifically done for the new psychic. And of course, along with a bunch of, other things like, things like etheric shards, where you make a bunch of glittering pieces of force, or bilocation, where you just kind of exist in 2 places for a while, are some of the new spells coming in this chapter specifically for the psychic.
Mind-blowing. Thank you, sir.
Yeah.
This has been a great preview of the Deviant Abilities, and we look forward to more throughout the next few weeks. Thank you for joining me on Paizo Live and waiting until the end to take your turn. We very much appreciate that. Have a wonderful Friday evening and weekend, and we look forward to. I think you'll probably see James in some interviews over the next few weeks with some of our content creators, and then of course we're making our plans for Gen Con online, where we'll have seminars, and you can bet that Dark Archive and Drift Crisis and Drift Crashers and Book of the Dead and the Bloodlords adventure path are all going to be talked about. So thank you all for thank you, James, and thank you all, chat. Thanks for joining us, and thanks for asking such great questions. And we'll sign off for now, and we'll next see you on Twitch at Gen Con. Adventures ahead. Good night.